Matt Canavan, Linda Scott, and you at home, exactly the way that we like it this particular Monday night. So, Newspoll tells us that things are back to 50-50. Now, one of the reasons why the Prime Minister's turned around and said, I'm going to rule forever, is I've never lost a Newspoll, which that's never been a problem for a Prime Minister in the past, setting Newspoll as the sole determinant of things. But still, coalition vote, 39%, with preference discipline, put simply, out of One Nation or United Australia Party, that's pretty damn competitive. However, of course, the race to 76 seats is all about the end game. The Teals would be an issue there. But, Matt, I want to ask you, again, people who would consider themselves much smarter than little old me told us no one cares about the Andrew Giles stuff. The budget was fantastic. The economy's still moving on. Are we starting to see people just not buying the BS anymore, or, frankly, there is not an election this weekend? So you can say whatever you want, and then we'll see what happens when it actually counts. How have you interpreted the numbers?
Look, I think this government's on thin ice with people, and they're primarily on thin ice because they haven't lived up to the promises they made to the Australian people. They said, Anthony Albanese said it would be easier under him. He said things would be cheaper under him, and clearly they haven't been. We've had record or inflation we haven't seen for a generation. As I said before, real wages going back to 2011 levels. People have gone back more than a decade in just the 2 years of this government. So that's principally the reason they're on thin ice. And then, look, yes, on top of that, you've had this scandal. And look, I can't think of a scandal that has that's been of greater controversy or greater real-world impacts here. I mean, you've had a government decide a policy, this so-called Direction 99, which has allowed the most heinous criminals to stay in this country when they should have been shipped off back to the country of their origin. I mean, it's sickening to read the accounts here of these criminals. They've bashed their partners. They've committed the most heinous sex I'm going to describe against their children or stepchildren. And this government has been responsible for doing that. This minister, and then he's been defended and hasn't. I mean, what do you have to do to be sacked? I mean,
yeah, that's my issue too.
Almost every minister been sacked in the last few years has been sacked for less. And so I think that's my issue, on top of what the broken promises, it really is, I think, a tough time for this government. They're on thin ice.
I think it's a rude awakening about their strategy. Their strategy, which is, no matter how obvious, just put up the wall, never admit defeat, so therefore eventually people just get tired of trying to mount an attack. It's not going to work because people are watching, and as you defend the indefensible, you start to fall into a hole.